Hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Products and Services here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to present Dion McCormick, no relation, our Premier Solutions Engineer, along with Sarah Mitchell, who's in charge of our documentation department. Today, Dion is going to be going over, I believe, using Pusher with Alpha Anywhere, which is a system that allows you to communicate back and forth between your server and your apps in a new and unique way. But we're also here to answer your questions. So by all means, type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll be here to field them. All right, so let's get started. Hello, Dion, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Cool, let me go ahead and make you presenter, and there you are.
All right. Hey, thank you, everybody. We really do appreciate you taking time to come visit with us. We have a fun demo today. Actually, it'll be the first of two parts. I kind of want to do the setup, an initial introduction, and a little demonstration, then show you something a little more interesting next time around. But it's something that's really powerful and very critical these days in terms of the kind of applications, but also has some very powerful impacts in terms of making your apps more interactive, more powerful, and really reducing server strain, which is always a key thing. You always want to keep that server running as fast as possible. So again, I wanted to say thank you to everybody for taking the time to join us. If you do have questions that you have, go to our Q&A section of our GoToWebinar control panel, put those in there, and we will be doing everything in our power to answer them. And also, we love to hear from you at guides@alphasoftware.com. That's GUIDES. And feel free to send us in questions. We try to grab and work on those as much as possible because we want to hear from you. As we mentioned last time, their new production release out. It's actually a really good release, getting good results with it, and it's very stable, has a lot of under the cover kind of fixes and things like that. So we're very, very pleased with that, and it's coming along real well, and the team's already back at work on new and improved features. Also, we just had a new release of Transform with a lot of really cool features. I think this is the 6.0 release of Transform. So that product continues to sort of mature extremely rapidly. And Dave, as you may know, does a Tuesdays, Transform Tuesdays, which is a great event. I highly recommend you pop in and watch that because it has a lot of really cool stuff. Learn more about what's up with Transform. If you don't mind, Dave, what were the kind of highlights on the 6.0 release that came out just very recently?
Some of the big highlights, well, I mean, the look, as soon as you open it up and you take a look at it, you go, wow, that's pretty neat. But there have been some improvements to TPL. There have been some improvements to layouts. There were better sample forms. And then we added in an ability to do, although it's not, there's a little coding involved, but we allowed your ability to base64 encode your images and access them right on the device, which meant that we were able to do OCR capabilities. So you're able to take a picture like of a license plate or a number or something, or a serial number, and have it enter it in as text right there on the phone, which was really quite cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
Ones. Yep.
Yeah, so check it out. I mean, again, Transform continues to mature. You can do more with it. You can build things extremely rapidly, and it's such an exciting technology platform, and just getting better and better and better. Also, you know, the team continues to really enhance the underlying architecture. So one of the cool things is if we go back to our roadmap, you know, the key is let's improve our server side, let's improve Transform, let's improve everything. And so we're going to kind of talk a little bit about server side, although it kind of goes to client side, meaning the UI, but it really goes to allowing you to better use your server resources. And also deploy things on Alpha Cloud that you couldn't before, but also with Transform, we're rapidly advancing there. So what we're very excited about is that the roadmap continues to mature and the deliveries keep coming, and we're very, very excited. So today I'm going to go ahead and
sorry to interrupt, but it almost looks like it's time for another roadmap. Here we are.
I know, we're kind of
coming
at the
up
end of the roadmap.
On March, April, it's ended there, but you know what? We delivered pretty much everything that's on that list. So
I know, it's pretty crazy.
All right.
Yep, absolutely. The only one I can see is maybe remote debugging.
That's right. That's the one
there. But everything else, memory footprint, consumption, data connectors, everything else has been put in there. So the team's just been really pushing it. And really, there's nothing else after this. We're done, everybody. That's it. We're at the end of the roadmap. what you got, to use it, enjoy it. Don't call us, just we'll call you. No, they're working on a lot of stuff there. And actually,
It's never
coming
done.
up, that does beget, we will have our developer conference later this year, and we'll be expanding on the roadmap and the capabilities to kind of show you what's going to happen the next couple of years. So you'll be really well prepared for not only what has already been delivered, but what is coming down the road. So today I want to talk a little bit more, and this actually is kind of crosses domains. It crosses the UI side, and it also crosses the user interface side. I need to adjust my mic, so hold on one real quick second. Okay, so today what we're going to talk about is notifications, and specifically the ability to do notifications. Now, we're not talking about mobile notifications. We're talking about notifications in regards to your website or your web. And this is an extremely powerful capability. Basically, it allows you to transform the interactivity of the user with the website, but also it allows you to offload sort of your server in terms of making less demands on the server and putting more of the work on the clients in that thing. Now, up to now, we have had this capability, and we've done demonstrations on this a while back, specifically using what was called WebSockets. And WebSockets has been around for a long time. It's been built into Alpha. There are a lot of capabilities there. And what's really neat about WebSockets is that you could provide these capabilities to communicate out to clients and really do things, but there were certain elements to it. One is that worked fabulous on standalone. And then IIS, we did add on IIS, but still wasn't like, what we wanted. And really, when you moved into Alpha Cloud, WebSockets were not available just because of the way the infrastructure of Alpha Cloud is done. So the team realized that, and they didn't want to take away this great capability that was WebSockets from our developers. So they went back and they looked at the industry, and they said, listen, we could roll our own, put it into the Alpha App Server, or we could leverage third-party systems. And they actually came across a great third-party system that does what WebSockets does, but has a lot more capability. It's actually easier to manage, more powerful, and I'm going to show you all that today. And that is called Pusher. It's a third-party system that handles notification traffic. So right off the bat, you get two really huge benefits. One, it has a very robust ecosystem. It allows you to connect into other types of systems because it's all sort of JavaScript, kind of modern Web 2.0. Secondly, the infrastructure it runs on is theirs versus your server. So all of that message traffic is being handled by them. So it takes away from having to put any demand on your app server. So your app server now can breathe more because it doesn't have to do a lot of extra stuff. And more importantly, the response time is insanely fast. They're using edge type servers on massive data centers. So really reliability is super high. And also by using this technology, you offload your server more because the clients aren't bothering the server. And we'll talk a little bit more about that there. So what we're going to do today is we're going to show you a quick demonstration, and then we're going to go through and show you how it was built, how you can configure it. And what's nice is it takes very little time to do it. I think the most amount of time is actually signing up for the Pusher service is really where most of the time there. So first, let me jump over to here and let me take you to pusher.com. So it's pusher.com. And this has all the information about it. And it has information in regards of what you can do with it, real-time notifications, really neat stuff that can do way beyond what we have gone through and done from there. One thing I want to make sure that you understand is the pricing is phenomenal. If you're planning on over $1 million or 1 million messages per day, then maybe, it's just, I mean, the pricing on it is really low cost. And for the kind of applications a lot of our developers are doing, it's essentially almost free in terms of that, in terms of what it costs. And the beauty of it also, which is really nice, is you get all these other benefits in handling. So when we selected this, it was super important for us to make sure that we weren't, burdening our developers in terms of that, which is pretty good. And so what's really cool about it is that it's easy to integrate because Alpha has done all of the work towards it. So they talk a lot about, coding and everything else. You're not going to do any of that. It's all built into Alpha. You may do a little JavaScript for most of that. Secondly, which is really powerful, is that more and more we're interacting with existing systems and other systems. So if you are doing interaction with something else, here's the little Python script that you can put together and how it works, etc. So they have a really wide developer. So again, interacting with other products, other systems, etc. It's really, really handy from there. So what I'd like to do first is a quick demonstration. We're going to have fun with this. It's going to be actually a lot of fun. So I'm going to jump over here. I'm going to go ahead and scroll here, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go ahead and put into the chat window a website that I pulled up. It's on my little development personal server kind of thing that's going on there. So feel free to open that up. And what you're going to see is something very simple. It says push your demonstration client and welcome. Nothing really, it's just a static UX page, and you'll see it. But something's going to be really cool in the next few moments. So I'm going to give a few moments for people to go ahead and grab that, open it up. It's not going to install malware or anything like that, so don't worry. It's not going to, install sneaking things, something like that. Feel free to give us a credit card. You can just throw it into the chat window if you feel comfortable, but we're not going to go grab it or anything like that. So the way this works is on the left-hand side, you're going to see this is my development environment. And I'm actually just running what I call my server UX. And I just did this because I created some little scripts that I'm going to show you in a few minutes to send messages out. So the idea is I'm going to send a message out from my server, and then anybody who opened up this web page will get notified, and it goes through the pusher service. So when I click send message here, in a moment, you saw over here on this browser right here, ooh, hello from pusher. Exactly. And I bet a whole bunch of other people saw that same message.
I saw it too as soon as you clicked it.
I hope we do.
Yeah.
And you can see it's like insanely fast. I mean, the moment I clicked it, it showed up. Now, the reality is, since I'm running on the same server, this message actually went up to pusher, came back here, and then went to this because I'm running this in my browser here. But notice it also broadcast to everybody else. So any UX, any web page that has basically registered, which I do under the covers with this, and we'll talk about channels and some other things like that, is just sitting there listening. And what's neat is that there's a lot of flexibility we'll talk about in a minute in terms of, what kind of messages you're sending, et cetera, and the sky's the limit. And again, really, I'll show you how to implement it in the next few minutes. And also, by the way, I'll send this out to you. If you're interested, send us an email to guides@Alpha Software. I'll send all this project out to you. And again, next week, we're gonna have even more fun and do some more interesting things with it. Do realize I'll probably cancel the channel information, so you have to go get Pusher, but it's a free account. So you can go on and get a developer account and test it out and all that kind of stuff from there, and they're not going to charge you. So as you're experimenting with this, you're going to be able to use it really good. So again, very simple concept out of the gate is that I have a server-side event. In this case, I'm clicking send message. It does an Xbasic callback. In that callback, I send out a message, and then pusher sends that out. And then on the client side, I'm listening or waiting for a message coming in. And when that comes in, I can then execute a action JavaScript in that case, or JavaScript. You can do anything you want to then address that incoming message. So let's go ahead and show you how this is done. So first, what I'd like to do is show you the pusher backend, how I set things up there. And then I'm going to come in and talk about the client, how I set up the client. And then last but not least, how I set up the server part of it there. So with that in mind, I'm going to jump back over and I'm going to go into my system here. So I've logged into Pusher here, and you'll see they have channels and beams. We're really only talking about channels. So with channels, you can see I'm seeing my concurrent connection. So I guess I have about 26 people connected at one time. So realize 26 people at the same time, we're all getting that message instantaneously on us. And again, since I'm on the free account,
yeah, I'd like to point out there are 68 people right now on our webinar. So what's going on?
Some slackers.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to push this thing.
That's fine, sure. Yeah.
Cool. So again, and again, that's like if you had a couple thousand people, then at a certain point, then it's going to slow down, yada, yada, yada. That's all about their plans, what you would purchase, etc. As you can see, I'm given 200,000 messages I can send. So I'm basically at 0%, but they're tracking it there, and I can see the information right here. And actually you can do live, which is kind of fun, which actually shows your messages. So let's go over here. Let's send a message. Let's send a message. Let's send a message. Let's send a message. And you can see that it's showing me live the activity in there. Boom, there's my activity there. It's pretty fun stuff. My guess is they're using the same technology internally. Now, the idea is we have what are called apps. So you create a app. And so I created this thing called GKT Alpha Webinar, because you may have different applications. So you don't want to mix and match and get complicated. So you can say for my CRM app, this is going to be my application on Pusher, for my bookkeeping app, for my manufacturing, etc. Now, once you've created that app, you're seeing this activity is on this particular app right here. And you can see I've sent out 216 messages, because each time I send one message out, it goes out to 26 people. So that kind of thing. Ooh, we got some more people on there. Some more people jumped on, we think there. So to do this, you create an app. And when you create the app, it creates what's super important, which is called the app keys. So really all you have to do, which is very straightforward, is create a Pusher account, create an app, and then it's going to generate these app keys. And then you can copy these down on your clipboard. And this is what's important, because you need to put this into Alpha so Alpha knows how to talk to Pusher. And so these secret keys, etc. here, and you just copy them and paste them in where, and I'll show you how to set that up in the next few minutes. But the app keys are important, because when you start registering it kind of tells the UX what it should go talk to Pusher about, so it's doing all that communications. Basically, what's going on behind the scenes is when this page loads up, it actually calls to Pusher and says, hey, Pusher, I need to connect to this app. By the way, here I'm at, this is my address, this is everything else. So it does that all under the covers. And so now this thing is just listening to Pusher for any things. I push things up to Pusher, and then boom, it actually sends it down to here. Now, the important thing about that is that a lot of people want to build dashboards and other aspects there. And their thinking is, okay, I build a dashboard, and every 60 seconds, I need to see if we have a new set of calls, if the chart has changed, if the grid has changed, if a new call came in. Well, the problem is if you had 100 people and they're all hitting it every 60 seconds, your server, and nothing may have happened, your server is going to get just bogged down, because it's just getting hammered with these requests. Well, we flip it on its head. When something happens on the server, then the client is doing all the work then, because we basically send one message up to it, and then boom. And then based on that, the client can then take action. So it can say, oh, I'm already up to date, or oh, I've got to refresh myself kind of scenario. So you're still going to have polls back to the server, but they're going to be more spiky, because they're not doing a bunch of polling on every few moments kind of there. And we'll talk about it more. The kind of message you can send, you can kind of channel them into different types of messages. So your UX will say, oh, I need to update just this portion of me. I don't have to update everything. So you can get very intelligent in terms of how you manage that communication process. But again, the important thing is the server is doing less work, it's leveraging Pusher, and the client now has all this really interactivity that's really, really fun from there. So let's dive into how I set this up. So as I mentioned, first step is set up my app, get my app keys. Now I'm going to start with my client UX. So I'm going to go into my client UX. And this is a very simple UX. Basically, you see it has a panel header. That's this area up here. And then it has a panel card right here. So that's all it is. It's really just an empty deal here. But I'm going to go over here to my properties. And then I'm going to go to my property search here, and I'm going to type Pusher. And you'll see that we have Pusher configuration, Pusher application. So you'll see that there is a button or a checkbox. When you check that, it then shows this for you. So again, in order for this to work, you have to make sure that for each of your UXs that is going to receive messages, you need to enable Pusher application. Now we go on there and load it, and you can see in here that we are putting in our app key, our secret, and our cluster. So I go right here, app ID, key, secret, cluster. I'm taking all that information there and just pasting it in here. This is the Pusher library URL. This is built in, this is preset here. And then this is called the channel. Now, the channel is really important, because this is how I can differentiate traffic. You can think of a channel as like, when I'm sending these messages out, I'm gonna send them down this channel, this channel, this channel. So in this particular situation, this UX is listening to this channel, which is really nice, because you could potentially have 10 different UXs in here, and each one could be listened to a different channel, so that it doesn't have to weed through a lot of stuff. You can be very precise in terms of your messaging. But this is what you do. And once you've set this up, you've enabled this UX to receive messages. Now, let's go ahead and show you how that works. So in order to do this, and when I do the actual demonstration from the server side, I'm basically triggering a built-in action JavaScript that throws up this message right there. So I'm going to go over here, and the first thing I'm going to do is show you I've created a JavaScript action called push or message. And this is just our classic transient message that says hello from pusher and puts it in the center. So I just created this so I have something to trigger. But here's the cool thing. You know, look at all the things I could trigger remotely. I could actually change the user interface. I could take them to a certain panel card. Like, let's say there's an issue. You could take them over to a panel card to look at there. You could refresh grids. You could open a whole UX component. I mean, basically think of it as instead of clicking on a button, you could remotely act these things out. So the capabilities are so fun and so cool because basically you can wrap the complexity into a action JavaScript and then just trigger it. So how does that work? So I've created my action JavaScript. So now how do I actually interact it? And that's where we go to client-side events. And so you'll go to client-side events, and if you look over here, there's something called on pusher message. Basically, this is a built-in event. So again, we set up and told this UX, this is how you're going to get messages. So now when this thing launches, it's going to connect to pusher. It's going to use these credentials, and it's going to say, come on, give me messages. I'm ready for them at any time. Now you have the responsibility of saying, well, when a message comes in, what should you do? So this is where you have a lot of flexibility. So you'll see all I'm doing right here is, and I'll delete this and show you, is I say when any message comes in on this channel, and again, this is channel dependent, I'm going to insert the code to run here. So it's a very kind of simplistic. It just says if a message comes in, it's just going to happen. And I'm going to show you in a moment, it gets even more fun because you can actually add more capabilities to it. So we set up our properties. This thing, when it launches, it's listening to messages. And now when when a message comes in, it triggers whatever I want it to do. So let me go ahead, and I'm just going to go ahead and show you what that message looks like. So let me go ahead, and I'm going to disable that, and I'm going to save that. And just for my purposes, I'm going to go ahead and publish it. Okay. So now I'm going to refresh my UX, and you're welcome to do the same thing here. So now what's happening is, again, when this loaded up, it went ahead and connected it. And now when that comes in, it's going to actually show you what the message looks like. So I'm going to go to server, send the message, and there you go. It says basically message on webinar 157. So I'll show you, you can actually include information in the message. But in my case, I'm just triggering saying, it doesn't matter what it said, I just want to act on it. But that inclusion is important because now you can take this incoming data and use it with whatever you want to do on that client. And we'll do more of that in the next round. I didn't want to make it too complicated out of there. So the easy way to do it is just say, hey, when a message comes in, take this action. Now, again, it's a channel. So if we look at the channel situation in this message, there's a lot of data. So if you look over here, when I created this on pusher, there's some directions here. So it says basically this fires when a message comes in, and we can get the different things. Like we could put actually the event name. So we can get the event message, the channel, and the event name. So we can say alert e.channel, and then we can go alert e.event name. So it gives you more kind of hooks that you can use. So I'm going to go ahead and publish that. Refresh this. Wait till it refreshes. Oh, most other people must be refreshing. So I'll send the message. So I should get 3 alert boxes. So this is my message. This is the, what is it, alert type. I'll go back and look at it real quick. And then what kind of event. So the 3 things that came in there and I showed were the message, the channel, and the end. So the cool thing about that is that you can actually put multiple channels and listen to multiple channels in a single UX, and then based upon the channel that it was, take different actions. So again, very flexible. You can do lots of cool things with it. You can even look at the incoming message and do that. So I'm going to that's what I want to talk about from the client side. And we're going to explore this more next week in terms of what are the cool things you can do with the client side. But now what I want to do is go over and talk about the server side, because there's 2 parts of it. There's the part where I'm listening. I'm going to go ahead and actually, let's go ahead and put, there and there. Let's save that. Okay, so there's the side that's listening, essentially the catcher, and now let's look at the picture or the pitcher. So right now we have a send message. It's a single button on here. So this is a very simple UX. I have a send message, and what it's doing is an AJAX callback that's running some Xbasic. So in my case, what happens is when I click this button, it does a callback, it runs this function, and that function is what's actually communicating to Pusher. Now, what's neat about this is that I'm triggering this as on a button, but this could be triggered on an internal script. So let's say you're doing database updates using an Xbasic class or something like that. Well, technically you could, after you've done that, is say, oh, you know what? I'm going to send this message out, and if anybody's listening, they now know the database has been updated. So you can see you can tightly integrate this into your business process flow. So the reality is the users aren't having to refresh anything. The data is now starting to go to them. So it's a sort of a push system versus a pull system, and very neat stuff. And we'll show more on that. So let's go in and look at that actual script. So again, when I click this, it's going to run an Xbasic function, and it's going to run this function. Well, as you can see, it's a pretty simple script. Basically, I'm dimensioning a message. I'm putting in that message. Then I'm telling it what channel I want to go to. And then there's this built-in function called push or send message that puts that information. Now, this has a lot of flexibility. What's nice is when I put in here, remember when I put the, by the way, oh, really important, you have to on this side also push in the pusher configuration. So, but this is when you're using UXs. This function that I showed you a few moments ago, it's basically pulling from the UX those configuration elements. If you don't have that, there is a method where you can just pass it in as information. So it's very flexible. So if you're doing more server-side code behind the scenes, you don't use this eTemple, you use that, and it's all documented in the system. But it's pretty simple. I created a message. I told it what channel I want to send it on, and then I just send it out, and Alpha takes care of the rest. So I can go, what an amazing group of developers. So I've got that. Let's go ahead and save that. And let's see, I think I refreshed that. And then we'll go ahead and do this. Now, oh, I know it's going to, oh, okay. So it will just show the other, but what I could do is, let's go to my client real quick so that we can show it. Oh yeah, it is going to do message, and I've got too many S's. Okay, so I do have to do that there. If I just left the run, it's always going to be defaulted, but we'll talk about that. So let me go ahead one more time. Thank you for your patience, everybody. And go to the working preview. And once it refreshes, again, little server. Okay, it's almost there. There we go. Come on, show there. So I'll send the message. And what an amazing, if I could spell, amazing group of developers. And it's putting in the current time. So you can pass direct messages. You could actually, I mean, I literally could put JavaScript, by the way, in there and just have it run the JavaScript. There's a lot of fun things you can do. But the neat thing is that Alpha's done all the work. Basically a single function call, passing in the right parameters. And again, if you are doing server-side stuff, you can actually pass in the key and everything else from there. And pretty straightforward. So now what's neat is this function can be embedded anywhere. It could be embedded in other controls. Like let's say I have an app where I have this person's making something happen. It does an Xbasic callback to do something on the server. Well, on the server, in that Xbasic callback, I say, oh, by the way, I want to send out a message to anybody else who's also doing this stuff. Here's the situation. Again, we're going to show you more of that fun stuff later. So that is the introduction to Pusher. You set up the account. You then set up your app and get your app keys. For your client and your server UXs, you need to use this pusher configuration to set that up. On the client side, then you just go into the client side events on pusher message and start interacting with it. And again, this is kind of giving you some instructions. There's a really neat example chat window application. I found it a little complex to get your head around, so I wanted to do something simpler and then unwrap it from there. But this tells you basically all you really need. And as you can see, it's pretty simple. You get a message channel and event name, and then in here you could do if thens, etc. I tend to want to do as little JavaScript as possible. So the idea is I'm going to build my action JavaScript, which is what I want to do. And then in here, what I'm going to do is just read what's coming in and trigger the appropriate action that goes with it. On the server side, again, I did put in the configuration here because when I do my server, I'm going to just use this. But again, you don't have to. It could be literally be a JavaScript function or a Xbasic script to send out a message. And then in that case, you got to push in or add in those items there. So that's kind of a quick overview. Again, we're going to explore it a little more, show you some of the other fun things you can do with it on our next webinar. But I want to go ahead and stop at this point, open it up for specific questions, and see if anybody has any comments or questions that they need.
All right, let's take a look. Well, just a couple of ones that have, it seemed to be more around security. One is this GDPR compliant?
That I don't know. I think that's going to be a matter of you notifying the person that we're going to have notifications coming in. So what you would want to do is probably have a pop-up when this UX comes up and get their acceptance and then store that with their user record or wherever. I think that would get you to GDPR. I'm not that familiar with it. I think you have to tell them exactly what you're going to do with the data.
Right.
You're really not collecting data, you're pushing data to them. So technically, I don't know if you're really even under GDPR, but again, I'm not an expert on that by any stretch of the imagination.
And then a related question is it also tracking GPS?
There are ways to do that. What you can do is, I've only focused on the server side, but let me go over here to the JavaScript. Let me go here, the client, insert method.
I mean, if you wanted to, I suspect
there
right,
are some JavaScript functions that will allow you to push messages from the client to pusher.
Yeah.
So in that case, and that's what they're talking about, is that message could be your current location or any other data that's on your UX. So definitely
it could be used for that, but that's not its default out of the box configuration.
Right.
It's sending GPS data back. So if you're worried
No,
about
that would be something where you'd have to, we have built-in JavaScript that can say, talk to the device, get there's actually built-in functions on doing that. And then I do believe there are, and I'd have to double check, but there are JavaScript functions that will allow you to call from the client and send up. And that's kind of a cool too, is that again, instead, if you want to broadcast, you don't have to go through the server. You go through Pusher to talk to other people, kind of chat items there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. That's a really good question and a good observation.
Cool. So can you do, oh, here's a good question. Can you do person-to-person messages? I am on,
yes.
Okay, well, that's easy.
Yep. Well, basically with the client side, yeah, you're going to go through the pusher system, but yeah, the client side messages there. Actually, hold on a second here. Let me pull it up here. Bear with me. Oh, there it is. There, let's go here. I just want to pull up the handy dandy. So there's videos. Pusher. Oh, I'm not seeing it on there. But there, let's see. Okay. Pusher. Yeah, there's some documents. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. There's some videos that go through that. So let's see, where is it? Pusher. I don't know if it's yeah, it's not on here. But we'll cover that next week a little bit more detail. But the intent is, because you can do both server-side messaging and client-side messaging, you'll be able to do that. I believe, and let me go over here for a second. This is the one that Alpha puts together and shows you. As you can see, it's a little bit more complex from that standpoint here. But you can, see, I think it's channel 1. Yes, okay, this is it. So let me go back here. So let's have my client UX here. And I want to actually put a button on there to send a message out. So I'll go ahead and put a button in here and I'll say send message. So if I go in here and I go to add new action and I put in pusher, you'll see we have pusher service actions. And there are different actions. initializing, subscribing to a channel, unsubscribe, and send a message. So basically, right now I'm kind of doing everything for the user. Basically, I'm setting up the subscription and everything else. That's all handled there. But if you want, you can give them control to say, okay, subscribe to a channel, unsubscribe. And so it gives you a lot more powerful capabilities there. So
Excellent.
the number one here is I can send a message. So I could send a message on webinar 1, the event name, and then I'll say hello there. And then I can put in that. So let's give this a try. Let's see what happens. It will break, but we'll see. Okay. So I'm going to publish that. So now I'm going to refresh this. And I'm not sure if it's going to work. So we'll see in a minute. No, I think what I have to do is I have to go in and in JavaScript, like initialize subscribe. So I'll include that next week. Again, I want to kind of walk before I run, but I'll example of going peer-to-peer kind of structure on that is that you can do that kind of, I want to send messages to other people. And again, the neat thing is it doesn't go through there. Oh, wait. Oh, cool. It did work. Never mind. I wonder if that's other people clicking it. Oh, no, that's it.
That's you.
Yeah. Do you want to try it? Did yours refresh? Let's give that a try. Oh, I didn't touch anything. Wow, this could get really annoying, everybody. So it's like,
oh, they're getting it again. That's funny.
This is the classic, and I want everybody to listen very closely. This is super, super important. Probably the most important thing I'm going to say. Just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should do that thing. So, with great power becomes great responsibility. So anyway, yeah, I've got like 100 of them now.
They're all stacked up.
So that's probably going to be our third week of how to like not do something that will annoy everybody out on there kind of situation. Yeah, I've got like
funny.
all these right here. I'm clearing there. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. We did. Yeah. So we did just get a note that's we did just get a note that's saying, yeah, a couple of people looked into it, and Pusher itself is GDPR compliant. Obviously, if your app does other things, Pusher doesn't make it GDPR compliant, but you can
we're updated.
Compliant that way.
860 messages right now.
Wow, man. So you only have 200,000 though, right, to go through? So
yeah, I know. And we have 41 connections right there. Some people aren't getting interested at all. So, so pretty fun. I mean, as you can see, how hard was that? I mean, literally, it takes you maybe 10 minutes to get this whole thing set up. And now you could do messaging. You could do stuff, really fun stuff. Like, you have a couple people who are doing work on, and here's the deal. This is not a replacement for mobile native notifications. I mean, but if you are on a web page on your mobile device, this stuff will show up and still work because it's a web page on a device. Mm-hmm. So it's not meant to replace the mobile notifications where, oh, the app is in the background and I want to tell the person they got a new message. But for other kind of things where you're just doing like real-time chat with someone in your office, well, you're probably going to have that up and running on your website or on there. And you could do that with this kind of technology very, very simply. Now, obviously, you don't want to put up a bunch of alerts. I think I have 420 alerts I have to go through here. But you would put them into you would just take that message and instead of displaying it, you would append it to a text box or something along those lines there. So
sure.
Again,
yeah.
A lot of fun, but very easy because Alpha built in all this functionality. Now you can go have fun with it. So we'll show some other fun stuff in our next round. But I want to go ahead and see if there are any other questions people might have had.
So someone did actually ask that exact question about, so would this work as a replacement for mobile notifications or what we call push notifications? And the answer is no. When your phone is locked, for example, nothing is going to pop up and say, hey, you've got a new message. That is a different type of technology called push notifications.
Yeah. And
the nice thing about this is it works on everything. And if you need to know stuff in real time while you're working with it, that's cool. But it's not cool.
Well, and think of a factory floor where you have the web browser up all the time. It's running it's running a machine, and basically you want to be able to connect to that, get data from it, stuff from like there. So yeah, but there are huge amount of where this really comes in, and I kind of mentioned it before, is dashboards. Like someone has a dashboard up. Well, if something happens on the back end, you could refresh charts, you could refresh grids, you can do all this stuff to keep them updated on what the latest information is there. Or if something went bad, you can kind of put something on their screen to notify them. They don't have to even refresh their browser. It's just going to happen. And those are the kind of fun stuff we'll explore next week on how you might be able to use the technology.
Neat. Very cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really, again, I caution you, I would like to send this out to you. This is really cool. This has everything you ever want to know about Pusher, but it's complicated because there's so much stuff going on here. But this is a full chat app, including subscribing, unsubscribing to different channels and sending messages, both on the client side. This is the client side up here. This is the Ajax callbacks to Xbasic functions. So that's kind of where I got my information here. And it's real fun. And there's a video that walks you through this too also. So if you want to get in and get more deep in terms of how this stuff works, it is available and it's a lot of fun.
So cool. Well, excellent. Looking forward to the next session where you show the other part of it. We have some other questions, not Pusher questions, if we're ready to get into those. The first one I said is, okay, the first one is the person with a UX and they have a number field in that UX. It's been placed just as a single control and they want to show a sum of all of the records in the database for a particular field. So maybe it was, totals from an orders database and you wanted to see what the totals were from the entire thing. So I asked, or it was asked, I guess, by Sarah, is this in a list or is this separate? So the answer is separate. In other words, we're not going to see necessarily the data. We want to connect to a database in the back end, get a sum, and display that in my UX.
Oh, okay.
Shows how to do that.
Yeah, let me go ahead and take a shot at that real quick. Save everything. Okay. So there's a couple different ways you can pull that off. And so let's go ahead and just create an example of it here. So if you have a control, I think the easiest way to do it, to be honest, is to create a view in the database that totals all those things up and then connect your UX to that view and then just show those totals in the text boxes. So to give you an example of that, let's go ahead and show you how that would work. So I'm going to go here to controls. Thus, you're making the database do all the work and all you're doing is being, keeping your thing simple. So I'm going to go in here to my connection string. I'm using the AA demo Northwind, the built-in one. I'm going to go to my table name. Now, in my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick product sales for 1995, or let's see, sales by category. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'll go ahead and put in all fields. And now what this is doing is the following. It's binding this UX to this. Now, I'm not going to actually create new records. I'm not going to delete the record. And the reality is I don't have Fortex, but I can go ahead and do a working preview and immediately in the database, it's going to pull up that view key, let's go to the data mining. Oh yeah, this is the view. So I have to specify the primary key. Let's call it category ID. So we go here. And so what this is going to do is now show on my UX, oh wow, primary key not defined. Well, let's make a category name. And let's see.
You could make it read-only too, right, in this case, since we're not.
Yeah, because we're not going to actually edit the data.
That's usually when it complains about a primary key.
Got it. Let's go ahead and make this read-only. So what it's saying is that it created this code for me. So it wants me to go here, edit it. Filter table, anything else. Cool. I don't know if that's going to like it very well. I usually, access is a little weird. Ah, there it is. Okay. So you can see it's doing a product sales. This is a view that for like category ID, it's collecting the total sales for it. Now what I can do is go in. Let's just do this very quickly. Let's do a grid since it's just really straightforward. And then we'll go in here And I think it's order details. We can go there. Okay. And we'll make that editable. Okay. So now let's do a working preview. So on this case, I'm just showing what all the order details are. So if we come back here, we have category 6 is 14.123. If I go in here and I say, okay, filter this, let's go ahead and just do that real quick. I'll go ahead and add a search part, and I'll go into the search part, and I want the product ID. So now I can go here, let Alpha do the work. So I'm going to go up here, and it's 6, I believe, and search for product ID 6. Okay, so here are all my records on this. So unit price, quantity, discount, etc. So let's go ahead and just do something crazy. Let's make that like 1,000. Okay, and I'm going to save that record. Okay, now hopefully if this works correctly, I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to refresh this UX, which could be done without actually reopening. It didn't. Okay, so category ID 6. I'd have to, is that oh, it's category ID. So what category? Then this I wonder what category. Well, let's find out. UX or grid. Building a whole order system while you're watching there. Okay. Select categories. And let's add a search type. And I'll just play with this just a few more moments. And we want, was it product ID? So I can see and go, okay, product 6. So that's category ID 2. So if we go back over here and we find, there it is. It should update. I could be off on my product sales, so I'd have to see there. I don't want to spend more time on this, but the beauty of it is once you've updated the database, you just refresh this and those fields will populate with whatever that view dictates, which could be a total, an average, or whatever it happens to be there. And that's a really fast and easy way to work. The beauty of that too is that the moment the database has been updated, then that view is going to be updated. So you don't have to worry about, doing other calculations. And guess what? You could use Pusher to say, okay, update this screen to refresh it to show what the current value is for that view there. So I think it's a matter of what this view is doing. I'm a little off on that, but that's an easy way. Now, you could also, if you wanted to, do your own calculations and other things like that, but that would be a matter of querying the database in Xbasic and then updating those fields. So for instance, something very simple is I'm going to just go here and I'll say total sales. Okay. Then I'm going to go into the server side event, and then on the onDialog, I can say, search in database, and then I can say e.control.total sales is equal to like 100. So I'm not showing you the search in here, and there's a couple different ways on it, but you could do a query against the database. And then now what happens is when this loads up, it's going to first run that code when it initializes, and then it's going to set the value of that field for you. And then anytime you refresh this UX, it's going to rerun that code. You could actually do that on the onDialog initialize. In fact, let me go ahead and go, you could put that on here and put it in here. It depends on where you want to put it from there. But in terms of searching the database, what you can use is a very nice feature, which is called SQL. There's a function called SQL query. And you basically give it a connection and a SQL string, and it gives you the results back. So it's like 4 lines of code. And in fact, let's go ahead and, oops, sorry, bear with me. So I like the view idea because then you can do very complicated things. You're doing very little code. But then when you're doing that, you can do and go to SQL query, okay. So here's the SQL query function, which I use a lot, is basically you put in this and then you put in the query, and then you run it. So it's 4 lines of code, and then it brings back the result. And then from that, you have to, it's result.json, so you can convert it to a pointer, pull off the first record, and you get those values. So this could be, instead of select first 10, it could select count of from customers or something like that. And you'll be able to do that. And that's, again, the SQL query. And let me go ahead and give you that there. So those are the two approaches. The code one gives you a lot of flexibility because you just have to basically, you can write these little Xbasic, do calculations, do everything you want to. You could do things on the fly too, like changing the color of the box. But I like the database view because then you just make the database and everything's real time on the database, because the moment something gets updated there, I don't have to rerun this code. I just know that next time it gets refreshed, it's going to pull the latest data from the database. So that's the two ways I would approach that problem.
Very cool. Okay, so here is another totally separate question.
Sure.
This one has to do with permissions. So if you were setting up a UX and it had panel cards on it, could you set it up to make sure that the client, the person logged in, has the permissions to see a particular card? Maybe you have a panel card that's made for administrative access, for example.
Gotcha. Okay, so the way you have to approach that is, let me just see if I have an existing user. Okay, so go ahead and grab this, put a panel layout in there, and I'll put in panel card, and I'm going to add another panel card here. And let's say, I've got these 2 panel cards, and I only want to see, they can only see postal code in this one panel card. So what I do is first is that panel cards, again, depending on how you're going to use them, if it's a layout, they're all going to show at the same time. If they are a navigator, they're going to show one at a time kind of scenario. But there really isn't a security aspect to a panel card function. So I probably wouldn't use a panel card for that. If you use a container, start around, go to the container, you can do security groups. So, which means that those fields would show or hide things along those lines there. Now on a panel card, if I do need to do that, then what I would do is I would use a programmatic panel card, and thus the only way they can see that panel card is that if I actually in my program say you can go to that panel card. But as far as visibility of a panel card, there's really, other than maybe docking, you can dock things and have them and then undock them when they log in if they have the right permissions and stuff. But again, that's going to be kind of a programmatic methodology as the way it goes. So yeah, I really don't know of any way to say this panel card can only be visible if you have these permissions, other than writing a little piece of some code, Xbasic, to say, oh, look at their permissions, and then show that panel card. Now, if you're using, say, a panel navigator, let me go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and change this to a panel navigator. Go here. I'll go to a panel navigator. Now with a panel navigator, you could use tab bands and then on the fly add other bands to show that to it. So there's some other aspects to it, but there's, really if you're looking at showing and hiding stuff, use containers as a really effective means, because you can kind of group things together and then show and hide that container based on their security protocol. It may be on the same panel card as other things, but you could use CSS to kind of make it look like another card that appears or disappears, how that goes. If not, use programmatic and then show that panel card through, one of the panel card actions.
Very cool. Here is a question. I don't know if you'll know the answer to this one, but it's an interesting one. So in the template tester, how when you put in JSON, there's a link that says reformat my JSON, and it sort of cleans it up and makes it look nice. Is there an equivalent function? Yeah, let's show that off. Is there an equivalent function in Alpha Anywhere that reformats JSON when you put in JSON?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's yeah, there's actually a couple different ones here. There's a really cool one called show diff, and I know this isn't your question, but what you can do is you can take text from two different things and it'll actually show a little diff thing. It's really very cool. Actually, let me demonstrate. I want to show you this. I'll come back to your question. Apologize. I'm geeking out here. I just found this thing
That's
and it was just so
that's
cool.
that's the politician answer. Hey, thank you for that
Yeah, I know.
question. I'm going to go answer a completely
Yes,
different one.
yes. I'm going to answer the question I would answer there,
All right,
But
well,
isn't
we'll
this
take a
cool?
look at
Check
this
this
one.
out.
Yeah.
So you can take a
Oh, yeah.
piece, there, and you can compare the two against, and this is just built in. It's really nice I use it a lot with JSON to kind of see the differences with JSON because I'm auto-generating. Now
I
that
see.
said, I believe there is a JSON formatting function. Where is it? See, that's the other one there. JSON functions. There is a ton of
Oh, it's
JSON
called
functions.
JSON
This is the
underscore
mother load.
reformat. Sarah has come to the rescue here.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, but you can do all these other cool things. But check out this page,
Wow.
by the way. You really need to go to that page because if you're doing anything with JSON, there are so many really cool things you never even thought you needed from JSON that Alpha's using. Our developer team kind of does stuff behind the scenes, and there's
Yeah.
some really cool stuff. There's one we always use like JSON generate, taking a pointer variable, but you can take a piece of JSON and turn it into CSV or vice versa. Really fun stuff. You can take it from XML, so a lot of fun. But yes, the answer is absolutely. There's ways you can do that, reformatting, etc., using Xbasic commands, which you could use in your app, but also just if you're playing around, you can write these little scripts and then run those and still have that ability to do that.
Fantastic.
Great
So,
question. Thank you.
yep.
Yeah, JSON is your friend.
So look at JSON validate. Also, Sarah says look at JSON underscore validate as well as to reformat. So to make sure that it's legitimate before you put it into
Too legit to quit.
too legit to parse, I guess. Let me see what else we've got here. If there's anything that we can handle in the last 2 minutes. This one, maybe you know of a solution for this. Let's say that you've got a UX component and you want to display a Microsoft document in it, and the Microsoft document is coming from a SQL table blob field.
Oh,
That sounds like a research one. Yeah.
You might
You
have to use a
think there'd have to be some
third-party.
sort of JavaScript third-party plugin, something like
Yeah,
that you can add that to?
yeah, there are. There are basically web
A web,
display.
yeah.
There are native viewers I know on like PhoneGap, and we actually support those on PhoneGap. But if you're doing in a web environment, native document in web page, yeah, there are third-party products that show you. I mean, we can handle PDF, no problem. It's kind of a native thing there. But if you want to show up like an Excel or a Word document, then there are third-party controls that will do it. And I found one a while back. Display Word document in web page control. Let's see, that's ASP.NET. You could always convert it to a PDF and then show it. But I think there are third-party viewers that are out there available you can get. I found them a long time ago. Yeah. I mean,
I
if
know
you're
we've
in,
used them in projects for clients. I don't happen to know the ones offhand.
yeah,
If you want to send an email to guides, guides at alphasoftware.com, we can probably figure out what we
we
used
can
in
dig it
that
out. I can go find my
for that.
information on that for sure.
Sounds
Absolutely.
good. Excellent. Well, we have
Well,
come to
that
the
was
end of
fun,
the
everybody.
hour. That was fun. I like that
Great
pusher stuff very
questions.
much, and I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
seeing the next session. So
Yeah, it'll be a
thanks
little
everyone
sexier than this one. Yeah.
impossible. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. If you do have further questions, send them to guides at alphasoftware.com. Thanks, Dan, for presenting. Thanks everyone for asking questions. Hope to see you at next week's webinar. Take care. Have a great week. Bye-bye.